house was quiet that evening in the most comfortable kind of way. Not the emptiness of silence, but the warm stillness of a family resting after a long day. Cutis and Buem were lying on the bed, each with a bottle of milk in hand. The two of them lay side by side, neither saying anything to the other, neither needing to, just lying there together, eyes drifting lazily toward the ceiling, while warm sips of milk went down slowly and steadily. Bottles in hand, pillows and blankets all around, the soft yellow light of the lamp above. This was the two siblings' small world every evening, and in that world there was nothing at all to worry about. The two of them looked almost comically at ease, lying there drinking their milk, legs stretched out, heads on pillows, in the posture of two beings who were enjoying life in absolutely the most comfortable way possible. Cutis occasionally lifted his bottle a little higher and tilted his head back, as if making certain not a single drop would be missed. Buem drank more slowly, small sip by small sip, her eyes already beginning to droop. Then Cutis finished first. He set his bottle to the side, with a satisfied air of someone who has been completely fulfilled, and lay back, dropping one hand across his forehead. That posture, that hand across the forehead, anyone who knew Cutis well would recognize it immediately. When he lay like that, it meant something was going on inside his head. He was thinking about something, remembering something. And Cutis was remembering. Inside Cutis' mind, a memory from earlier that day came back with the clarity of something that had happened just minutes ago. That time, Cutis and Buem had been sitting out on the chairs on the porch, sitting properly, seriously, in the posture of two very important figures. It was an ordinary afternoon, a light breeze, nothing particularly remarkable about it at all, until the hand appeared. From outside the window, a hand reached in, sneaky, slow, and then suddenly it touched Cutis. He startled, jolted upright. He looked out, no one there. The hand had pulled back and its owner had disappeared somewhere behind the window frame. Dad. It was definitely Dad. No one else in this house had that particular style of teasing. Cutis stood up and walked to the window, looked outside. Nothing. He looked right. Still no one. Just the breeze and the empty yard beyond. But Cutis knew. He knew Dad was hiding somewhere nearby, looking in, trying not to laugh. And inside his head, a plan began to take shape. Not a plan to go and tell Mum. Not a plan to pretend he hadn't noticed. A plan to catch Dad in the act. Cutis went back to his seat, sat down, and deliberately acted normal. But his eyes were anything but normal. They were already sliding toward the window, waiting. And Dad, exactly as Cutis had counted on, reached his hand in again. This time, Cutis, he spun around and caught Dad's hand right there on the spot. Caught in the act, Dad had nowhere left to hide. He could only step out from behind the window, his face unable to conceal the mixture of delight and genuine surprise at being so successfully turned on by his own child. That was one of Cutis' favorite kinds of moments. Not because he had won, but because in that moment, he and Dad were playing a game without a name, the kind of game that only people who are truly close to each other can play together. Cutis snapped out of his memory. He sat up on the bed, quickly, decisively, like someone who had just remembered something important. Dad, wasn't he home yet? He jumped off the bed and ran out to the porch. Standing there, he looked out toward the road in front of the house. It was already dark, the yellow light from inside the house spilling out across the front steps. And beyond that, the deepening darkness of the evening. No familiar silhouette on the road. Dad, wasn't he back yet? Cutis stood there for a moment, watching, waiting. Then, unable to keep still any longer, he ran all the way out to the gate, as if getting closer to the road would somehow make Dad come home sooner. Back inside the house, Buem had finished her bottle of milk. She set it down, sat up and looked around, and noticed that big brother Cutis had already run off somewhere. Out at the gate, Cutis stared into the darkness of the road ahead. It was very dark now. No moon, just distant stars and the quiet stillness of a countryside evening. He kept looking, and then spotted a small light, far away, moving in this direction. A flashlight. He knew Dad always carried a flashlight when coming home late after work. That small point of light was getting closer, slowly, steadily. Cutis squinted. His heart beat just a little bit faster. But was it really Dad? He needed to be sure. Cutis climbed up onto the gate, gripping the iron bars, pulling himself up, so he could see further, see more clearly. He stared hard at the approaching light. Then he recognized it. Yes, that was Dad. And immediately, like an electric current running through him, a plan began to take shape in Cutis' mind. Cutis climbed back down from the gate, feet hitting the ground, and ran straight into the house. There was no time to hesitate. Dad was on his way home, and the plan needed to be put into motion right now. First thing, clear away the evidence. Cutis ran to the room, picked up Beauté hot milk bottles that the two of them had finished, carried them quickly to the sink and placed them in. Neat, tidy, no traces left behind. Then he ran back to Buum, holding a stuffed bear in each hand. His own bear and Buum's. He sat down in front of her, held the two bears up and began whispering the plan. Buum sat and listened, her round eyes opened wide, nodding along occasionally in the manner of someone who is fully following and completely agreeing with every point being presented. Even if Buum didn't understand every detail, even if she was still very small, that nod, earnest and definitive, was enough for Cutis to continue. The plan was simple and brilliant. Place the two stuffed bears where the siblings usually slept. Cover them with a cloth as if tucking them in under blankets, so that when Dad came home and looked in, he would think both children were already asleep. Meanwhile, the real two of them would be hidden somewhere in the house, watching Dad and waiting for exactly the right moment. Cutis carried it out step by step. He placed the two bears down, arranged them in just the right positions, one tilted to the side the way Cutis usually slept, one lying straight the way Buum slept. Then he took the cloth, draped it carefully over them, smoothed it flat, and stepped back to look it over and make sure it appeared as convincing as possible. Looking at the little scene he had just staged, Cutis nodded with satisfaction. Very good, very believable. Now, the most important part, find somewhere to hide. Cutis ran to hide. He chose a spot under the chair, a place from which he could see most of the room without being seen. He lay flat, pulled himself in, adjusted his position slightly for comfort, then went still and began to wait. This was the hardest part of any plan, the waiting. Outside, footsteps were getting closer. The sound of the gate opening, footsteps coming up onto the porch. Dad was home. Dad stepped inside, set his things down, looked around. Quiet. No sign of either of the children anywhere. Dad looked toward the bedroom. He saw two mounded shapes lying still under a draped cloth, looking very much like two small children sleeping soundly. Dad gave a slight nod. Ah, the two of them have already gone to sleep. But he still walked in to check, the way every parent does, looking in just to see a child sleeping, just to feel at ease. Dad stepped closer and gently lifted the cloth. Two stuffed bears looked back at him. Dad stood still for a moment, looked at the bears, looked back at the cloth, then looked around the room, no one there. Both children had vanished. Under the chair, Cutis was desperately trying not to laugh. He could see Dad discover the staged scene, and inside him, a small bubble of joy was beginning to rise. But not yet. He still needed to stay quiet just a little longer. Dad knew the two of them were up to something, and he began to search. Cutis watched Dad walking around searching, and he saw this as a perfect opportunity to add a little more spice to the plan. He shifted to a different observation spot, silently, carefully, not making a single sound. From this new angle, he could see Dad more clearly, while Dad had absolutely no idea where he was. Then Cutis had another idea, an idea he privately congratulated himself on being excellent. He took off his shirt. He placed it on the floor near the kitchen and bathroom area, arranged in the way a shirt looks when someone has taken it off, and left it there before going in to bathe. Then he pulled the bathroom door almost closed, just slightly ajar, as if someone were inside. Then he slipped away to hide behind a different door, tucking himself in, his heart thumping with a mixture of nerves and pure delight. Dad came searching, moved toward the kitchen area, and spotted the shirt on the floor. Dad looked down at the shirt, looked up at the slightly open bathroom door, and nodded to himself. Ah, the two of them must be in the bath. Dad walked to the bathroom door, paused for just a second, then opened it, raised both hands, ready to jump out and startle whoever was inside. No one. The bathroom was completely empty. Dad stood there, looking into the empty bathroom, then looking back down at the shirt on the floor. This little one, Dad thought, had planned more carefully than he'd given him credit for. And behind a door nearby, Cutis was watching Dad through the narrow gap. Eyes bright, body trembling slightly from the effort of holding in his laughter, completely absorbed in the pure and simple joy of the game. Dad stood in the middle of the house and looked around slowly. The two children were hiding somewhere in this house. He was certain of that. But no matter how much he searched, he couldn't find them. Dad thought. Something shifted in his expression, from the look of someone searching to the look of someone who had come up with a plan. Dad walked into the kitchen. He took out the frying pan, placed it on the stove, got out the cooking oil, reached for a bag of prawn crackers. The kind that both Cutis and were absolutely wild about. The kind where just hearing the sizzling sound in the pan was enough to make both of them unable to sit still. Dad began to fry. The oil started to crackle and pop in the pan. The small white prawn crackers went in, hit the hot oil, and immediately puffed out, expanding, turning golden and crisp, releasing a wave of fragrance that rose up through the small kitchen, drifted through every gap in the doors and walls, slipped into every corner of the house. The smell of freshly fried prawn crackers. There is no other smell in the world quite like it, and Dad knew that perfectly well. In his hiding spot, Cutis was maintaining his mission focus, and then the smell arrived. At first, just the faintest thread of it, barely there. He twitched his nose, sniffed again. There was no mistaking it. Prawn crackers. Cutis tried to hold his position. He bit his lip, stared straight ahead. But that smell kept coming in, relentless, getting thicker, richer, as if it were deliberately tapping him on the nose and saying, "Come out, come out!" His stomach growled. Not a quiet growl, a clear, purposeful growl, from a stomach that had had milk a long time ago and was now very much demanding something considerably crunchier and more fragrant. In the kitchen, Dad finished frying. He lifted the crackers onto a plate, golden puffed, perfect looking. He sat down, picked one up, put it in his mouth, then nodded his head and praised it loudly, loudly enough for the sound to carry right through the house. So good, so crispy, so wonderfully fragrant. Dad praised it loudly, very loudly, on purpose. Outside near the window, was hiding, or more accurately, attempting to hide. She had caught the smell of the crackers even before Cutis had. That tiny nose of hers had been twitching from the moment the first wave of fragrance arrived. And from that point on, had been using every last ounce of willpower she possessed just to stay in place. But when she heard Dad praising the food out loud and imagined that plate of golden crackers sitting in the kitchen, crispy and fragrant, with no one eating them, could hold out no longer. Cutis saw that his sister was about to break ranks and quickly ran over and scooped her up. He thought for a second, and instead of walking straight into the kitchen, he carried to the window. He climbed up, carrying with him, and came in through the window from the outside in the most unexpected way possible, as if the two of them had just arrived from outdoors, as if they hadn't been inside the house this whole time. Dad was sitting eating his crackers when he heard a noise at the window, looked up, and saw Cutis climbing in, in his arms, both of their faces bright and cheerful, as if they'd just come in from somewhere. Dad genuinely startled, not a frightened startle, but the startle of someone who had not expected their child to choose to make an entrance quite like that. Then Dad burst out laughing. Dad looked at Cutis and asked, "You set up a plan to trick Dad, didn't you?" Cutis stood there, still in his arms, trying his best to look serious but unable to hide the smile, working its way out at the corners of his mouth. He nodded, admitted it directly, without hesitation, without any attempt to sidestep it. "Yes, Dad, that was my plan." Dad didn't scold. He looked at Cutis standing there, no shirt, still in his arms, then stood up, picked up Cutis' shirt that had been used as a prop in the grand plan, walked over and handed it to him. Then Dad said, in a tone of exaggerated seriousness but with eyes that were clearly laughing, "You two have had your bath, have you? Smells so fresh and clean." Cutis looked up at Dad, understood immediately that Dad was playing along, stepping right into the story. Cutis had staged, playing the game on his son's terms, and he couldn't hold it in any longer. Cutis broke into full laughter, loud, genuine, unstoppable, the laughter of a child who has just been played along with by an adult in exactly the way he had hoped for. Buam in his arms started laughing too, not entirely sure why everyone was laughing. But when Big Brother was laughing and Dad was laughing, Buam laughed as well, because happiness in a family has that miraculous, contagious quality all its own. Dad pulled out a chair, sat down, and set the plate of crackers in the center. He gestured for both of them to sit. Cutis set Buam down carefully, then sat down himself, pulling his shirt on, hand already reaching toward the plate of crackers. And they ate together. The three of them, Dad and two children, sitting around a plate of prawn crackers, the crunch of each piece, the overlapping voices of conversation. Sudden bursts of laughter whenever someone brought up another detail from the little battle that had just taken place. The moment Dad lifted the cloth and found the stuffed bears. The moment Dad flung open the bathroom door and found no one there. The moment Cutis climbed in through the window with Buam in his arms. Every detail retold was a new round of laughter, and that small house that evening filled up with the sound of the three of them laughing, warm, joyful, and whole in the way that only truly ordinary moments can ever really be. Dad watched Cutis eating his crackers, talking, laughing, and in Dad's eyes there was something not always easy to see. The quiet, gentle pride of someone watching their child grow up day by day, becoming smarter, more inventive, and more joyful with each passing day. No need to say it aloud, just seeing it was enough. Cutis' evening tonight held nothing out of the ordinary. No party, no gifts, no event marked on any calendar. Just Dad coming home late, two siblings waiting, a small game of hide and seek played out inside a familiar home, and ending with a shared plate of prawn crackers. But this is exactly the kind of evening that people remember for a lifetime. Not remembered because it was grand, remembered because it was warm, remembered because inside that ordinariness lived something very real. The bond between a father and his children, the sound of laughter, the freedom to be completely yourself without fear of being judged or scolded.